There's something about hearing stories of strange experiences from other people that makes them more believable. And in this video, we're going to look at some Reddit posts that will make you wish you never read them. So turn off the lights, lock your doors, and prepare to meet some horror. The isolation of the open road. When you're driving across barren landscapes, it can feel like you're completely alone, which means if anything happens, you'll have no help coming. That's exactly why you should keep moving and not stop unless you want to attract unwanted attention. For Redditor, FNAR Fun. They stopped to help someone only to regret their decision. I was driving through the Nevada desert by myself around 2 or 3 a.m. About 2 hours before that, I must have run over a nail because I got a flat tire. The moon was bright and I easily saw the tire iron in the back of my truck as well as the spare tire. It took me maybe 5 minutes to change the tire, but once finished I noticed there was another set of tracks right next to mine. They were about 6 inches wide and fairly deep. I thought to myself, it's probably just a cow or something. I got in the truck and continued my drive home. The next day I told my boyfriend about the tracks and he said it was probably a badger, which is very common in the desert. We looked at the pictures and he was right. Yet the creepiest part, the tracks were made by one animal running away from my truck, yet the second set of tracks showed it coming back towards my truck. Those tracks weren't made by any animal. A strange encounter. Some people believe that ghosts are actually spirits that need our help to move on. Others believe they're malicious entities that prey on humans. Either way, these ghosts don't stick to the grave. They wander the earth and the internet has become the perfect place for them to roam. And for user Vendetta Af, they discovered this when they ran across a lost soul. I was working for a tech support company back in the early 2000s. Our team would take turns answering emails. One day, I got a series of emails from a guy asking for tech support. He wanted help recovering files from a formatted hard drive. Since I worked in the tech department, it was my job to respond to him. It was weird because he was clearly distraught and bordering on panic. His emails were filled with curse words, sentences that didn't make sense, and references to things that didn't exist. This went on for weeks. The man sent dozens of emails, each getting weirder than the last. Then his emails stopped. A few months passed and I forgot all about it. Then suddenly he began emailing again. I responded to his email and asked him to try reinstalling Windows XP. He responded with, "Thank you for your help. You've saved me from despair. I was wrong. The spirit isn't trapped here. I'm trapped here." Then his emails stopped again. I recently found those emails and I haven't seen that account since. A warning in the night. When you think about scary places, cities aren't usually the first thing that comes to mind. After all, there's safety in numbers. There are so many people around you at all times that it's almost impossible to find solitude. However, this story proves that some urban legends are best left undiscovered. Mr. Blue Moon tells the tale of a haunted apartment building. I lived in a large city in the late 80s with my boyfriend in a small apartment. At about 4 a.m., we were awakened by pounding on our door. I looked out the peephole and it was dark. Someone was standing there holding a candle. My boyfriend opened the door and said, "Can I help you?" The stranger just pointed down the hallway, then quickly walked away. My boyfriend closed the door and turned off the light, thinking it was a practical joke played by the neighbor kids. About 15 minutes later, we heard pounding on our door again. I looked out the peephole and saw the same girl standing there. She was crying and holding a candle. I yelled, "What do you want?" To my surprise, she spoke. Her voice sounded old and raspy. She said, "Beware the red candle," then turned and walked down the hall. We never saw her again. One day, I was cleaning out the closet and found a box with a red candle inside. I threw it away. Maybe it was a coincidence. We didn't have any candles at the time. Perhaps it was just a child's candle. Well, one evening we were home alone, and the power went out. As we were eating dinner by candlelight, the candle on the table suddenly flared up, then went out. When the power came back on, I saw that the candle had melted completely. We never had another power outage while we lived there. The secret in the walls. If you've ever stayed in a hotel, you know how hard it is to get a good night's sleep. Between noisy neighbors and creaky beds, you might be better off sleeping in your car, and sometimes the walls themselves seem to have something to say. Inkblotch tells the story of a hotel guest. I used to work as a housekeeper at a historic hotel. It was built in the 1920s and was supposedly haunted by one of the owners who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. One night, I was cleaning a room when I heard scratching in the wall. I thought nothing of it and continued cleaning. As I rounded the corner, the scratching followed me. I quickly finished my work and got out of there. Later, I learned that the owner had also heard the scratching and had removed the wallpaper to reveal a cavity. Inside the cavity, they found a diary that was dated the day the woman vanished. As it turns out, she hadn't been kidnapped or murdered. She'd simply walked out on her life. But here's the strangest part. In the diary, she mentioned hearing scratching sounds in the walls. Lost in the woods. Being lost in the woods is a nightmare scenario for many people. If you're afraid of the dark or creepy crawlies, you may never escape the forest alive. Even if you don't have any of these fears, being stuck without food and water could mean the end of your life. It seems like a place full of danger, which is exactly what Ms. Prism found out when they encountered something terrifying. A friend and I were backpacking in the Beartooth Wilderness in the summer. On the third day, we hadn't seen anyone else. The hike was beautiful, if a little strenuous. As we hiked, we talked about the fact that there were bear canisters scattered throughout the campgrounds we passed. It was odd, but not concerning. Around 7:30 p.m., we found a secluded spot and made camp. In the morning, we woke up to the sound of shuffling outside our tent. My friend and I noped out of there, practically sprinting down the mountain. About 15 minutes into our hike, we realized we were hopelessly lost. No matter where we turned, everything looked the same. We walked in a panic for several more hours before we finally found the trailhead. We were dirty, hungry, exhausted, and worst of all, thirsty. Still, we were relieved to be done. Then we saw the bear canisters again. They were everywhere, and etched into every single one was the same message. Help me. Voices in the static. Have you ever been listening to the radio and heard a voice that wasn't supposed to be there? It's almost like you hear a whisper in the static between songs. Well, it seems like some of these voices come from another realm. One user shared their experience of a ghostly broadcast. I was living with my family in a small town when I was a kid. We got a new radio, one that could pick up a bunch of stations. One day, I heard a news broadcast on the radio that made me turn the volume down. It said something along the lines of, "Residents of the area are advised to remain calm and stay indoors. All available police units are pursuing a dangerous individual who appears to be heavily armed." I turned the dial to a different station and heard the same announcement. I ran to my parents and told them. They thought it was funny and told me to go play. Now, this was the 80s, so I got in my big wheel and went to explore. About 15 minutes later, I heard the sound of sirens and police cars rushing past. I rode my big wheel as fast as I could and watched them speed by. I didn't see anyone hanging out of the windows or anything. I remember thinking, they must be chasing that guy. Then I heard a voice in my head that said, "It's too late." I froze. No one else was around and I knew that voice wasn't mine. I raced home as fast as I could and hid in my room until my dad came to check on me. I never told my parents about the voice, but I wonder to this day what it meant. Now it's time to hear from you. What's the scariest Reddit post you've ever read? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, make sure you're subscribed. If you enjoyed this video, check out more like it. Here, we'll see you next time.